Every year, as Antarctic winter fades into spring, something massive opens up above the icy continent, a hole in the ozone layer so big it could swallow North America whole. Scientists expected it to shrink by now. It was supposed to be a success story. We banned the chemicals that caused it, we celebrated, and yet, the ozone hole still returns year after year, and it's not going away. In fact, in some years, it's been bigger, longer lasting, and even more intense than before. In late 2023 and again in 2024, the ozone hole grew to over 10 million square miles. That's roughly the size of the entire United States plus Mexico. It stayed open for almost 3 months, much longer than expected. This isn't normal, something's off. The ozone layer is Earth's natural sunscreen. It protects all life from harmful ultraviolet radiation. Without it, UVB rays can reach the surface in full force, damaging plants, disrupting ecosystems, and increasing risks of skin cancer in humans and animals alike. Here's where it gets weirder. Some researchers now think climate change itself might be keeping the hole open. The warming of the lower atmosphere cools the stratosphere above Antarctica, which is where ozone depletion happens. That cold stratosphere helps form the bizarre-looking polar stratospheric clouds, bright iridescent clouds that only show up in extreme cold. These clouds play a direct role in breaking down ozone when the sun rises again over the pole. The ozone hole also opens the door to some unsettling possibilities. Increased UV exposure in parts of the southern hemisphere has already been recorded. Crops can be affected. Plankton in the oceans, the very base of the food chain, are vulnerable. Some fear that if the hole doesn't heal, we could start to see ripple effects around the globe. And then there's the theory some don't talk about much. A small group of researchers and online sleuths have noted anomalies in satellite ozone data, strange patterns, unusual spikes, odd shapes forming in the ozone maps. Could there be other sources, artificial or natural, that are accelerating the damage? Volcanoes, secret high-altitude emissions, even high-energy experiments in the upper atmosphere have been floated as possibilities. The data isn't conclusive, but it's enough to keep the questions alive. The ozone hole above Antarctica is no longer just a scientific concern, it's becoming a mystery, and it's one we still haven't solved. Not everything in Antarctica is solid ice. Deep beneath the surface, vast hidden caverns have been found under major glaciers, and they're growing. In 2019, NASA's Ice Bridge mission stunned researchers by revealing a giant void under the Thwaites Glacier. A cavity about 2/3 the size of Manhattan and nearly 1,000 feet tall. It had formed in a place thought to be stable. Turns out the glacier was melting from below at an alarming rate, hollowing itself out in silence. Thwaites isn't just any glacier, it's nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier because of what could happen if it collapses. It holds back a vast portion of the West Antarctic ice sheet. If it goes, global sea levels could rise by several feet, and these subglacial cavities are warning signs. The melting isn't always visible from above. Much of it is caused by warmer ocean water sneaking underneath, eating away at the base like termites in a wooden floor. What's more disturbing is how fast this is happening. These voids didn't exist decades ago. Some of them grew in just a few years. Under Pine Island Glacier, another unstable giant, similar cavities have been detected. Radar from space shows the ice above is cracking, thinning, and shifting. And once those cavities get big enough, the glaciers can snap from their own weight. So the question isn't whether they'll collapse. The question is when. When you think of Antarctica, you probably imagine white. Endless, blinding white. But in some parts of the continent, especially near the coastlines during summer, the snow turns green. And it's not pollution, it's algae. Yes, living organisms are literally blooming on the frozen ground. Scientists first documented these green snow blooms in detail in 2020, using satellite data and on-site surveys. They found that in places like the Antarctic Peninsula, microscopic algae thrive in melting snow. The warmer the summer gets, the more they spread. On the surface, it looks like bright green slush. Up close, it's millions of single-celled algae clustering in wet snowdrifts. The phenomenon is strange, but it's not just a visual oddity. These blooms absorb sunlight, which darkens the snow and speeds up melting. A feedback loop. More algae, faster melt. And they're not alone. Red and orange algae have also been spotted in nearby areas, turning the landscape into something that looks more alien than polar. This green snow is a biological response to a warming Antarctica. And as temperatures continue to rise, the blooms are expected to expand. The continent might not stay white for much longer. From underground caverns to blooming snow, Antarctica is showing us that it's far more dynamic and unstable than we ever thought. But the ground above isn't exactly quiet either. There's something terrifying about watching a continent break apart. In Antarctica, it happens in silence, until it doesn't. Then the ice snaps like thunder, and a slab the size of a city slides into the ocean. These are iceberg calving events, and they're becoming more frequent, more violent, and much larger than we've seen in the past. Satellite images have captured fractures in Antarctic ice shelves, stretching for dozens of miles. In 2021, one of the largest icebergs ever recorded, named A76, broke off from the Rhone ice shelf. It was over 100 miles long and 15 miles wide. That's not a chunk of ice. That's a moving island. Just 2 years later, another enormous crack opened on the Brunt ice shelf, releasing a 600-square-mile iceberg. Scientists had been tracking the rift for years, but even they didn't know exactly when it would give way, and when it did, the satellite footage was chilling. These cracks don't just appear overnight. They creep and stretch, splitting the ice shelf like glass under pressure. Some are visible from the air, dark, jagged scars against the white surface. Others stay hidden until a piece the size of Manhattan starts drifting into open water. What's causing it? Warming air, rising ocean temperatures, and the slow loss of structural support beneath the glaciers. When warm seawater seeps underneath, it eats away the ice from below, weakening the entire shelf. Then gravity does the rest. Calving events are nature's way of relieving pressure, but when they happen more often and on this scale, it signals something bigger: the slow unraveling of Antarctica's frozen edge. Antarctica wasn't always a frozen wasteland. Dig deep enough beneath the ice and you'll find something completely unexpected: fossils of ancient forests, and even dinosaurs. It's hard to picture, but this icy continent once teemed with life. Tropical plants, rivers, entire ecosystems, long before glaciers claimed it. In 2022, a team of paleontologists uncovered fossilized tree roots in the Transantarctic Mountains. The wood was 280 million years old. That means Antarctica once had dense forests, despite being near the South Pole. Not just moss or scrub, full trees. Researchers also found fossilized leaves with growth rings, showing a climate that experienced long daylight in summer and long darkness in winter, but was still warm enough to support massive plant life. Even more mind-blowing? In recent years, fossils of dinosaurs, including a 25-foot-long predatory theropod, were found near the Antarctic coast. These aren't just scattered bones. They're part of a larger pattern revealing that, millions of years ago, Antarctica connected with other southern continents in a giant supercontinent called Gondwana. It was green, alive, and crawling with creatures. As the continent shifted south and froze over, it preserved these fossils like a time capsule. And now, melting ice and new research tech are exposing more of this buried past every year. It's a reminder that under all that cold, Antarctica holds secrets of a completely different world, one that may hold clues about how Earth could change again. On satellite maps, tucked between Antarctica's jagged ridges and frozen plains, something strange catches the eye. Mountains that look a little too perfect. Sharp angles, symmetrical slopes, structures that seem eerily familiar: pyramids. One of the most talked about examples lies in the Ellsworth Mountains, with 3 sides rising in near equal proportion, standing alone like a sentinel on the ice. Scientists call these features nunataks, rocky peaks poking up through glaciers. They're the remnants of ancient mountains, shaped by wind, erosion, and ice. But not everyone is convinced they're entirely natural. The symmetry has fueled years of speculation. Some claim they resemble the pyramids of Giza too closely to be coincidence. Others suggest they're ruins, weathered beyond recognition, left by a lost civilization or, according to the wilder theories, something not from this earth. Geologists argue that this pyramid-like shape is common in nature, especially where glaciers carve away rock. But here's what's odd: the number of these formations in Antarctica is higher than expected, and several lie in regions so remote they've barely been explored on foot. What deepens the mystery is the near-total inaccessibility of these sites. Harsh weather, limited satellite clarity, and government restrictions keep outsiders away. So for now, the questions remain. Natural formations? Sure. But the shape, the placement, the patterns, they keep stirring curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, that's not an accident. Of all the conspiracy theories orbiting Antarctica, few have captured the internet's imagination like the so-called ice wall and the hollow Earth. Both claim that Antarctica isn't what we've been told. According to these ideas, the continent is either hiding the edge of the world, or it's the gateway to something buried deep inside our planet. Let's start with the ice wall. Flat Earth believers claim that Antarctica is not a continent, but a massive frozen wall surrounding the Earth's edge, keeping the oceans in. The idea seems wild, but it's been repeated enough online to gain traction. Photos of towering ice cliffs, real ones taken along the Antarctic coast, are often used as proof. The truth, those cliffs are just part of the natural glacial shelf that wraps the coastline. They're dramatic, sure, but they're no planetary barrier. Then there's the hollow Earth theory, a belief that vast caverns or even entire civilizations exist beneath Antarctica's ice. Some versions mention entrances at the poles, secret tunnels, and even Nazi bases from World War II. Strangely enough, early satellite scans did detect magnetic anomalies under the ice, and those weird findings have kept the theories alive. The real story? Scientists now know that there are massive underground spaces beneath the ice, subglacial lakes, hidden mountain ranges, and miles of underground rivers. These are real, mapped with radar and seismic tech, but they're made of rock, water, and ice, not lost cities. Still, the myths aren't going away. The more we discover beneath Antarctica, the more the line blurs between science and speculation. And when an entire continent remains mostly unexplored, it's easy for mystery to thrive. Antarctica is the coldest, driest place on Earth, and strangely, one of the best places to find rocks from outer space. Thousands of meteorites have been discovered here, lying scattered across the ice like breadcrumbs from the cosmos. And there's a reason scientists call it a meteorite graveyard. When a space rock falls to Earth, it usually vanishes into oceans, forests, or cities, never to be seen again. But in Antarctica, if a meteorite lands on the ice, it gets preserved. Frozen in time, literally. Wind blows the snow away, the ice slowly moves, and the dark rocks eventually resurface in places where glaciers collide with mountain ranges. It's like nature's own conveyor belt, bringing space debris right to researchers' boots. Some of the most significant finds in planetary science have come from this icy desert. A few meteorites recovered here are thought to be from the moon. Others, even rarer, may have originated on Mars. In 2023, a team discovered a meteorite over 17 pounds, one of the biggest Antarctic finds in decades. And here's what really makes Antarctica unique: the contrast. Dark meteorites stand out starkly against the white ice. They're easier to spot here than anywhere else on the planet. No need for high-tech detection systems, just sharp eyes, patience, and cold-resistant gear. In a way, Antarctica is like a natural museum for space, except the exhibits are buried, frozen, and older than anything on Earth. Most people don't think of volcanoes when they picture Antarctica, but Mount Erebus doesn't care about assumptions. This massive, snow-covered peak is one of the southernmost active volcanoes on the planet, and it's got a lava lake boiling inside its crater. Mount Erebus towers 12,448 feet above the Ross Island landscape. It's been erupting off and on for over a century, and it's one of the few volcanoes on Earth with a persistent lava lake, a rare feature found in just a handful of places. Even surrounded by endless ice and snow, the glowing red magma bubbles up from deep within the Earth. It's not just the heat that's unsettling. Erebus emits strange, low-frequency sounds, deep, rumbling tones that some call the heartbeat of the volcano. Scientists use remote sensors to monitor the sounds and gas emissions, but getting too close is dangerous. The extreme cold, high altitude, and unpredictable eruptions make Erebus one of the most remote and risky volcanoes to study. In 2024, new thermal imaging revealed changes in the lava lake's movement, hinting at deeper volcanic activity building underneath. If Erebus were to erupt on a major scale, ash clouds could disrupt research stations and affect weather patterns across the Southern Ocean. Antarctica is supposed to be still, silent, but Erebus is proof that fire burns even in the coldest corners of the world. Beneath Antarctica's thick, silent ice, the magnetic field behaves oddly. For decades, scientists flying over East Antarctica have recorded strange blips in magnetic data. Sudden shifts, unexplained spikes, and patterns that don't match anything on the surface. These aren't minor glitches. They're massive, consistent anomalies deep below the ice, and they've sparked more than one late-night theory session. One of the biggest anomalies was found near the Wilkes Land region. Satellite readings revealed a circular magnetic disturbance over 150 miles wide. Some researchers suspect it could be the remnants of a giant asteroid impact crater buried under miles of ice. If true, it might rival the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. But not everyone agrees on the asteroid theory. The anomaly's shape is too clean, too round, and the composition beneath the ice remains a mystery. Some scientists think it's caused by unusually dense rock. Others wonder if it's a collapsed volcanic dome or even a submerged mountain range. The truth? We don't know. These kinds of anomalies also appear in other parts of the continent. They don't follow a clear pattern, and many are located far from known geological structures. It's like reading a coded message from deep Earth, written in magnetism. And of course, conspiracy circles have latched onto them. Some suggest hidden bases, ancient tech buried under the ice, or entrances to something else entirely. Wild claims, sure, but they feed on one undeniable fact: we've barely scratched the surface of what's under Antarctica. For more than a century, Sir Ernest Shackleton's legendary ship, the Endurance, was thought to be lost forever beneath the Weddell Sea. Crushed by sea ice in 1915, it sank into darkness, its location unknown. Until recently, in 2022, an expedition using underwater drones found the Endurance, perfectly preserved nearly 10,000 feet below the surface. Its wooden hull, though broken in places, still bore the ship's name across the stern. The cold, low-oxygen environment of the Weddell Sea had kept it intact, like a time capsule from the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. What makes this discovery so powerful is not just the ship itself, but the story it tells. Shackleton's journey was a survival epic. After the ship was destroyed, his crew camped on the ice for months, then sailed in open boats through some of the roughest seas on Earth. Against all odds, not a single man died. Finding Endurance connects us directly to that history, and the images of the ship on the seafloor are almost eerie in their clarity. The expedition used cutting-edge sonar and robotic subs to scan miles of seafloor. What they found looks untouched, as if the ship simply drifted into the dark and froze in place. It's one of the most incredible maritime discoveries in modern times. And it's a reminder that Antarctica still hides relics from the past, waiting under ice and sea, silently holding onto their stories. In a continent known for its blizzards and glaciers, there's a place where snow doesn't fall and rain hasn't touched the ground for millions of years. The McMurdo Dry Valleys stretch across southern Victoria land like a scar of dust and rock. No ice, no snowdrifts, just bare earth, frozen lakes, and winds strong enough to strip skin. This region is the closest thing we have to Mars on Earth. The valleys are locked in deep cold year-round, with temperatures regularly plunging below zero and humidity near zero. The landscape is brutally dry, carved by ancient glaciers but now so lifeless-looking it almost feels off-limits. Yet under the surface, life still clings on. Researchers have found strange microbial ecosystems beneath the ice-covered lakes that dot the valleys. Lake Vanda, Lake Frixell, these aren't dead water bodies, they're layered, salty, and contain microorganisms that have adapted to total darkness, extreme cold, and chemical conditions deadly to most life. The soil itself is another mystery. It's packed with salts and has been undisturbed by rain for such a long time that it preserves things like no other place on Earth. That makes the dry valleys a hotspot for testing space exploration tech. NASA and ESA teams often trial Mars rovers here, because if something can survive this place, it might survive another planet. In this silent, colorless wasteland, even a tiny microbe is a miracle. And every new sample taken from its frozen lakes or dry ground brings us closer to understanding life at the edge. Deep beneath Antarctica's ice, where sunlight never reaches and temperatures stay well below freezing, something unexpected has been found. Life. Not fossils or frozen cells, living active microorganisms. And some of them are unlike anything else on Earth. The discoveries started with Lake Whillans and Lake Mercer, two subglacial lakes buried under over half a mile of ice. Researchers drilled down using sterile, heated instruments, hoping to reach the water without contamination. What they found shocked them. Thriving microbial ecosystems living in complete darkness, feeding on minerals and gases trapped in the ice and rock. These microbes don't need sunlight or oxygen. They've adapted to one of the harshest, most isolated environments imaginable. They live by chemosynthesis, converting chemicals like sulfur and iron into energy, similar to what's seen at hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean. In 2023, new DNA sequencing revealed that some of these organisms might represent entirely new branches of life. Their genetic structures don't fit neatly into known categories. That's raised serious questions about the limits of biology on our planet, and what might be possible elsewhere. This kind of extremophile life is exactly what astrobiologists are looking for when they talk about life on Europa or Enceladus, icy moons with underground oceans. Antarctica, in a strange way, has become a training ground for searching beyond Earth. These alien-like microbes aren't science fiction. They're very real, and they're showing us that life doesn't need to follow the rules we thought it did. Buried under more than 2 miles of solid Antarctic ice lies one of the most secretive bodies of water on the planet, Lake Vostok. You can't see it, you can't stand on its shore. But it's there, stretching over 150 miles long and holding water that's been sealed off from the surface for possibly 15 million years. No sunlight, no oxygen, no connection to the outside world. Discovered through radar imaging in the 1990s, Lake Vostok is completely encased in ice, with the pressure above it so intense it keeps the water from freezing. Scientists believe it might be part of a vast network of subglacial lakes and rivers flowing beneath the continent, a hidden ecosystem, alive, ancient, and isolated. When Russian scientists finally drilled into it in 2012, they recovered samples of unusual microorganisms. These microbes had never been seen before, and they were thriving in conditions that should be unlivable. Some researchers remain skeptical, raising concerns about contamination during drilling. But if those microbes are real, it would mean Lake Vostok has its own life forms that have evolved in total isolation, possibly for millions of years. At the foot of Taylor Glacier, something bleeds from the ice. A crimson waterfall seeps from the glacier's base, staining the snow with streaks of deep rust red. This eerie phenomenon is known as blood falls, and its color, origin and survival have puzzled scientists for years. The red isn't blood, of course, it's iron-rich, salt-heavy water that's been trapped beneath the glacier for thousands of years. When it escapes and hits oxygen, the iron oxidizes, just like rust. But what's more mysterious is how it still flows, even in temperatures far below freezing. The liquid comes from an ancient subglacial lake sealed under ice, cut off from light and air, and it's not dead water. Inside, scientists have found microbial life feeding off iron and sulfur, living in complete isolation. These are not surface microbes that somehow slipped under the ice, they evolved down there. That's about it. Would you like to visit Antarctica? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.